I mean, really think about that for a second. When someone's life is on the line, how do you actually prove that something is completely, totally, and quantifiably free of any living microorganisms? You can't just eyeball it, right? This exact question is the whole reason the F0 value was created in the first place. So here's our game plan for today. First up, we're going to get a really solid handle on what the F0 value actually is. Then we'll take a little peek under the hood and see how its power is calculated. From there, we'll check out where it's used in the real world, figure out what it takes to meet the industry's gold standard, and we'll wrap up with some best practices for really mastering the process. All right, let's dive right in. The first thing we need to do is shift our thinking. We're moving past the general idea of clean. We're now entering the world of hard data, a world where sterility isn't a guess, it's a number you can measure. Okay, so here's the core of it. The easiest way to think about the F0 value is as a unit of kill power. It's a universal yardstick. It standardizes every single heat sterilization process by asking one simple question. How much killing power did we deliver, and what would that be equivalent to in minutes if we held the temperature at a constant 121.1 degrees Celsius? So if a process has an F0 of 8, it means it delivered the exact same lethal punch as holding that product at that benchmark temperature for 8 solid minutes. Simple as that. Now this brings us to something that trips a lot of people up, the difference between the F0 value and something called the D value. But it's actually pretty straightforward. The D value is all about the microbe. It measures how tough a specific bug is at a specific temperature. The F0 value, on the other hand, measures the total destructive force of the entire process with all its temperature ups and downs. So think of it this way. F0 is about the power of your weapon. The D value is about the toughness of your enemy. So if F0 measures the total power of the process, how in the world is that power actually calculated? Let's take a look at how time and temperature get combined to create that all-important final F0 number. This really gets to the heart of the principle. It's an exponential trade-off. Seriously, just a few degrees makes a massive difference. Trying to achieve your target F0 at, say, 115 degrees Celsius is going to take way, way longer than at the benchmark of 121. The goal is always the same, though, to deliver that same total cumulative dose of lethal heat. So how's it done without getting lost in some crazy complex math? Well, conceptually, it's a pretty neat 3-step process. First, you stick probes in your product to track its temperature through the entire cycle, the heating up and the cooling down. Second, for every single moment in time, a lethality rate is calculated. Basically, how much kill power is being delivered at that exact temperature at that exact second. And finally, you integrate. You just add up every single one of those lethal moments over the whole cycle to get one final super important F0 value. Okay, now that we know what it is and kind of how it's calculated, let's talk about where it really matters. Because this isn't just some number in a textbook. It's a critical metric that's used every single day to keep people safe. And the scope here is just massive. I mean, from the IV bag you see in a hospital and the surgeon's scalpel, all the way to the can of soup in your kitchen cabinet, they all depend on this process. In these industries, hitting that target F0 value isn't just a goal, it is an absolute, non-negotiable requirement. And that brings us to a super crucial point, meeting the standard. You can't just say you hit your F0 value. You have to prove it, you have to document it, and you have to validate it, all according to some very strict regulatory guidelines. I think this quote just sums it up perfectly. There is absolutely no room for error. When it comes to something like sterility, almost is exactly the same as not at all. The entire system relies on rigorous, documented validation that proves the process works and works the same way every single time. So what's the magic number? Well, while the targets can definitely vary, an FO value of 12 is a really common benchmark in the industry. So why 12? It's all about achieving this incredible safety margin called a Sterility Assurance Level, or SAL. It means the statistical probability of a single contaminated item making it through is less than 1 in a million. Think about that. That's not just sterile, it's sterile validated to an extreme degree of certainty. And meeting that standard, well, it's a whole process. It all starts with creating super detailed validation plans and defining exactly what success looks like. Then comes the meticulous documentation of every single step, all while following the rules from bodies like the FDA. And it's not a one-and-done deal either. It requires constant monitoring and revalidation to prove that the process is always under control. All right, so for our final section, let's talk about mastery. How do you make sure your process is tough, reliable, and free of those common mistakes that could just ruin everything? This slide gives us a great practical breakdown. For instance, a classic pitfall is just sticking the temperature probe anywhere. You might totally miss the cold spot in a load. So the best practice? You do detailed temperature mapping studies to find that cold spot, and then you monitor it every single time. Another easy mistake is just letting equipment calibration slide. The fix is simple. You have a strict, regular schedule, and you stick to it. See the pattern? It's all about turning those potential risks into controlled, validated procedures. And that really brings us to the final, crucial question. The F0 value gives us this incredibly powerful tool, a quantifiable standard we can measure against. It takes sterility out of the realm of hopeful guessing and puts it firmly in the world of validated certainty. So the question I'll leave you with is this. Now that you know the standard, how does your process